To the top story then, and the Indian rupee has surged in intraday trade, touching a high at 61.10 to the dollar. A sharply lower current account deficit along with sustained inflows from FIIs has brought cheer into the forex markets. The rupee is the second best performing currency in Asia, and it has shut shop at a 3-month highs at 61.11 on your screens, more than 1% of a gain coming in for the currency. Let's get on board then. Mr. N.S. Venkatesh, he's Head Treasury, IDBI Bank. Also joining us is Vijay Bhamwani, who's author and CEO at BSPL India. Mr. Venkatesh, hi to you first. And what a stellar performance that we saw today from the equity markets and the currency as well. What do you give it to? Is it the CAD reaction, or do you see something more brewing up here?
Yeah, good evening, Manisha. It was really good to see the rupee strengthening. I would say that it is a combination of factors. One is essentially the equity market doing well, attracting flows into the market, the dollar flows into the market. The second thing is, I would say that the geopolitical tensions are easing a little bit with diplomatic talks happening at the Russian level. So that also has brought in a little bit of a positiveness for the overall currencies itself, including the rupee. And the CAD numbers was really remarkable yesterday, whatever they put out yesterday. That showed that the steps taken by the government of India in banning or reducing the imports of gold had a very positive effect. So overall, I think it's a combination of all these factors coming in. And the fourth, I would say, is the exporters themselves seeing that the rupee has started strengthening and started selling the dollars, so that to that much extent they do not want to risk holding on to that currency and then finally end up selling at below 61 levels also.
Mr. Venkatesh, also how would you look at the Asian market, because the rupee today is the second best performing currency in Asia. We have seen a turnaround there as well. It's not just the Indian equities, much of Asia equities and currencies also are trading positive. So would you say that it's the flavor and we are just a part of it?
It is definitely a part of that flavor of Asian currencies having a stronger sort of sense today. But I would say that certain things are peculiar in the sense that essentially the flows coming into the Indian equity market actually going up very high, and maybe because of that the exporters themselves coming and selling off their dollar holdings. So these are peculiar to the Indian market in the sense the flows related to the Indian market. But I do agree that as when all the Asian currencies have turned around, maybe Indian currency also has joined that bandwagon.
Fair point. Vijay, to you, and how is the rupee looking on the charts now? Because we've seen 1.5% of gain in the currency in 3 sessions. 1.5% is the gain we saw in the whole of Feb.
Manisha, I've been talking about the appreciation potential of the rupee being limited, and today's appreciation has been stellar. Now, if it was to go towards the 60.65 to 60.80 band, I don't really mind taking a high-risk call and buying some US dollars in anticipation of a pullback rally before 31st March. I still think before March end, there will be a technical rebound in the dollar as books get balanced and overseas payments are made. So my guess is you are likely to get a fairly good probability trade in buying the US dollar below the 61 mark, preferably close to 60.65 to 60.80, and thereafter the appreciation potential in the US dollar could be in excess of 1.5%. So you're looking at 75 to 80 paise bounce from there. Of course, as we end the financial year, the pressure on the dollar will continue, but a technical rebound is not kind of ruled out at all. So there is one last trade for the currency traders before the year runs out.
Mr. Venkatesh, coming back to you then, and how would you look at the election scenario? Because that is the only thing that the markets would be watching out for from now on, given the good numbers that we have seen already.
I do agree, in the sense that any government coming in with a very stable sort of thing will be huge positive for the Indian economy. So to that much extent, the entire market participants will be looking at how the election pans out. The election dates have been announced. That itself was a positive sort of thing, which is resulting in the flows coming in to support the equity market. So I think definitely election is a key thing to watch out for.
Mr. Venkatesh, what would you give the currency? How much of further appreciation are you expecting from here? And how would you really look at the FY14 ending and the next quarter as well?
I personally believe in the near term, maybe up to March, I would always say that essentially the rupee should trade anywhere between 61 to, let us say, 62 levels. That 1 rupee level, it'll keep on trading. Then beyond that, essentially for the next remaining part of the new financial year which comes in, it depends on mainly depends on, I would say, the political sort of landscape in the country and how the election pans out. And with a stable government, you should see more reforms and more the projects coming on ground, which will be a very, very huge plus for the rupee.
All right, it has to do with the international markets as well. Let's get on. Mark Matthews, Head of Research Asia at Bank Julius Baer, and he will talk about the dollar index, which has been under pressure as well, and the way it going forward for the dollar index especially.
So I think there are two opposing forces. The first is, if you look at the dollar index, the largest weighting in it is the euro, and European banks have been steadily repatriating assets from overseas to recapitalize their balance sheets following the first global financial crisis and then, subsequently this European crisis. So there's been this constant structural inflow of capital into euro on the part of the banks there, which has supported the euro. But on the other hand, the U.S. economy is recovering, and typically a stronger economy is accompanied by a stronger currency. So putting the two together, I imagine the dollar index will just sort of go sideways.
Vijay, while you have spoken about the near-term currency there, what's your sense, of course, going forward as well? I mean, same as Mr. Venkatesh said, it much would depend upon the stability of the government. How would you look at the ranges going there?
Well, Manisha, beyond April, I think the political scenario will dictate how the range pans out. But where the currency is concerned, I think 60 will be a very, very a tough level for the rupee to appreciate beyond, because in spite of any positive news coming in after the elections, I think the fundamentals haven't really changed, and the technical picture does point out towards the dollar getting oversold at around 60.5 levels. So give it another 1.25% leeway, say 60. That's where the dollar does look poised for a sharp rebound, and I wouldn't really mind venturing out some more fresh long positions, which I would add on to the trade which I mentioned earlier at 60.60 odd levels. I don't really mind enhancing my long exposure on the dollar close to 60. I think once the elections are out and the clarity emerges, there might be a little bit of a euphoria on the rupee front, but that is likely to get quickly corrected, and then I would expect the rupee to go to 62 to 62.25 levels.